January 2016, a 4-year-old boy drew a picture of his dad cutting a cucumber. His nursery heard cooker bomb. He was referred to the government's counter-terrorism program. He was 4. He was drawing vegetables. That same program, Prevent, assessed a teenager called Axel Rudakabana on 3 separate occasions, looked at him 3 times and said, no, he's fine. He went on to murder 3 little girls in Southport with a kitchen knife he'd bought on Amazon. Police found homemade ricin under his bunk bed, enough for over 1,000 lethal doses. And in the year that program was clearing a future mass murderer, it also found time to refer 345 children under the age of 10 to counter-terrorism. 345 under 10. So today we're going to go through the numbers because the government funded a video game that teaches your kids worrying about immigration makes them a terrorist. The game's villain became the biggest right-wing meme of the year, with Elon Musk sharing her, and actual cryptocurrency coins launched in her name, and the game got pulled offline within a week. And that's barely even the start, because right now, on BBC One, there's a primetime drama where a man gets flagged as a terrorist for filing freedom of information requests. The BBC made that, with your licence fee. So let's look at where this system actually points, and what it's supposed to be watching instead. Right, let's start with the numbers because they're worse than you think. Prevent is the government's counter-radicalisation programme, been running since 2003, and in the year ending March 2025, it received a record 8,778 referrals, the highest since records began. Now, of those cases that actually got adopted for intervention, the Channel programme, where they sit you down and try to de-radicalise you, 42% were for extreme right-wing concerns, 15% for Islamist extremism, 42% right-wing, with 15% for Islamists. Now, compare that with MI5's actual counter-terrorism caseload, 75% Islamist, 25% everything else. 94% of every person killed by terrorism in Britain since 1999 was killed by Islamist terrorism. 94%. But the programme designed to catch these people early spends nearly 3 times the effort looking at the right wing. And this wasn't some secret, the government's own reviewer said it out loud. William Shawcross, the independent reviewer of Prevent, published his report in February 2023. 34 recommendations, all accepted by the government, and he was blunt about it. He said Prevent had defined the extreme right wing too broadly, pulled in the respectable right and centre-right, whilst applying much narrower criteria to Islamist extremism. Suella Braverman stood up in Parliament and called it a bogus equivalence, said it plainly, while obscuring the Islamist threat, Prevent had cast the net so wide on the right that ordinary political opinion was getting swept up. Chris Philp called it a national security failure, which, given the numbers, feels like an understatement. But the referral numbers are just the mechanism. Wait until you see what they actually built with your money to fix this supposed problem. So, the Home Office, through Prevent, funded a video game. I'm sure you've all heard of it by now. It was called Pathways, Navigating Gaming, the Internet and Extremism. Developed by a company called Shoutout UK in partnership with Hull City Council and East Riding of Yorkshire Council, made available to schools in June 2025, aimed at 11 to 18-year-olds. The idea was simple enough. Teach kids to recognise extremist radicalisation. Except the game focused entirely on right-wing radicalisation. Not Islamist, not left-wing, just right-wing. Despite MI5 saying 75% of their workload is Islamist terrorism. You played a character called Charlie, referred to exclusively with they-them pronouns, regardless of which gender you picked, by the way. Both players were white, right, so this is how it worked. Your choices were colour-coded. Red meant bad, green meant good. Questioning immigration policy. Red, naughty boy. Not boy, is it? It's the other one. Naughty it. Researching immigration statistics. That literally increased your in-game extremism meter. Looking up numbers, published by the government's own Office for National Statistics. Made your character more of an extremist, apparently. Most paths through the game ended the same way. Your teacher refers you to prevent, and you go through counselling to learn the difference between right and wrong in expressing political beliefs. State-funded re-education in a video game for children. Just a minute. Pretty sure I've seen this somewhere in here. Yeah, that sounds familiar. Now, the game had a villain, and this is where the whole thing falls apart in the most spectacular way possible. The antagonist was a character called Amelia, purple-haired goth girl from Bridlington, East Yorkshire. She complains that migrants are taking local jobs and tries to recruit you into anti-immigration activism. The developer, Matteo Bergamini, said her appearance was not particularly significant. He was wrong about that one. On the 9th of January this year, the Daily Telegraph ran an exposé. Within hours, someone posted Amelia as a meme on X. That single post got over 1.4 million views. And then it went completely sideways. AI-generated videos appeared showing Amelia walking through Parliament, declaring her love for England, wearing ICE uniforms, fighting in historic British battles, hugging Paddington Bear. Elon Musk shared her. Tommy Robinson posted videos of her. 2 separate cryptocurrency meme coins were launched in her name. By the 14th of January, the game was dead, stuck on an infinite loading screen, pulled offline. One viral post summed it all up. You may kill one Amelia, but 1,000 Amelias will rise. That post alone got 192,000 views. CNN ran it, France 24 ran it. Brussels Signal called it a PR disaster. A woke anti-racism campaign spawns right-wing icon. The government spent taxpayer money building a game to teach children that worrying about immigration is extremism. And they accidentally ran the most effective right-wing recruitment campaign in British history. You genuinely could not make this up if you tried. So that's the video games. But the BBC, they had their own plan, and somehow it's even more on the nose. Right now on BBC One, as you're watching this, there's a drama called The Capture, 3rd series, premiered the 8th of March. It's a thriller about surveillance and counter-terrorism. First 2 series were decent, deepfakes, CCTV manipulation, that sort of thing. 92% on Rotten Tomatoes for Series 1. Series 3, Episode 3, aired on the 22nd of March, a couple of days ago, introduced a new character, James Whitlock, played by Joe Dempsey. Gendry from Game of Thrones, if that helps. And his path to radicalisation, his origin story as a terrorist according to the BBC, begins with filing 9 Freedom of Information requests. 9 FOIA requests to the Home Office, made during a prison sentence, asking about government concealment of the true statistics on undocumented migrants.
It looks like Whitlock got hold of those Home Office documents via Freedom of Information requests. He made a total of 9 requests during his time in prison.
Counter-terrorism officers at SO15 treat this with visible alarm. They also flag his deactivated 4chan account as a concern. The character then delivers a monologue about land invasion and immigrants.
Last land invasion of England was yesterday morning at 9:45 when a boat carrying 40 undocumented male migrants landed in Dungeness, Kent.
And the episode ends with him peering through a rifle scope at an incoming migrant dinghy, targeting a mother and child in life jackets. Now, the reaction was about what you'd expect. Zia Youssef, chairman of Reform UK, said, "Sending Freedom of Information requests to the Home Office does not make you a terrorist. It makes you a highly useful citizen." Nick Dixon called it insane propaganda. Darren Grimes called it the BBC's latest high-budget fantasy. Ben Leo on GB News called it hilarious propaganda and told people to cancel their licence fee. Of course, the BBC's official response was one sentence: "This is a fictional drama, and the character of James Whitlock is not based on any individual person." That was all they said, just a sentence. The show's creator, Ben Channon, who employs a former counter-terrorism advisor on his research team, told Radio Times he thought people were obsessed with the subject of immigration, which is an interesting way to describe the #1 concern of the British public. But we'll get to that. Oh, and one more thing. GB News pointed out that the episode aired the same week officials were reportedly considering clamping down on the FOI system itself, filing a Freedom of Information request. The thing democratic governments are legally obligated to respond to is now a terrorism origin story. On the BBC, funded by your licence fee. Oh, and this sits alongside Channel 4's track record. Their UKIP, The First 100 Days mockumentary in 2015, Ex-soldiers hunting immigrants under a UKIP government got over 5,000 Ofcom complaints on one of the most complained about broadcasts of the year. Their Go Back to Where You Came From in 2025 lost a third of its audience by the finale and got cancelled. Schools run by the Orion education chain were reported teaching students that Reform UK is normalising far-right views. The National Education Union branded Reform far-right and racist, a union where 85% of members vote left and 37% vote green. Right, so they've got the video games, they've got the BBC dramas, they've got the schools. Now, let's look at what they should have been paying attention to. And I need to warn you, this next bit is a bit difficult. While the state was building video games and referring toddlers to counter-terrorism, something was happening across dozens of British towns that would become one of the worst child protection failures in this country's entire history. In Rotherham alone, at least 1,400 children were sexually exploited between 1997 and 2013. Professor Alexis Jay's report documented children as young as 11 raped by multiple men, trafficked between towns, abducted, beaten. Children doused in petrol and threatened with being set alight. Children threatened with guns. Children forced to watch violent sexual assaults on other children. Telford, over 1,000 children across 3 decades. Rochdale, Oxford, over 370. Huddersfield, where 42 men were convicted and 20 sentenced to a combined 221 years. Cases documented in over 40 towns and cities across the country. And there's no national total, because nobody collected the data. And the response from the people whose job it was to protect these children? Police in Rotherham treated the victims with contempt, described what was happening to them as a lifestyle choice, called them slags. Officers arrested fathers who went to the houses where their daughters were being abused, trying to get them out. One father was told the town would erupt if it became known that South Asian men were involved. Anne Cryer, Labour MP for Keighley, raised the alarm in 2002. She was dismissed as Islamophobic. Sarah Champion, Labour MP for Rotherham, wrote in 2017 that Britain has a problem with British Pakistani men exploiting white girls. She was forced to resign as Shadow Minister for Women and Equalities for just saying what the evidence showed. A Channel 4 documentary about the abuse in Bradford was postponed in 2004 over fears it could lead to race riots. The documentary was delayed. The abuse was not. And then the Casey audit, published June 2025. Baroness Casey confirmed what the victims had said for decades. She found the ethnicity of perpetrators had been shied away from with institutional obfuscation. She found a case file where the word Pakistani had been physically Tipexed out, whited out of the record. Her key finding, assertions that the majority of child sexual abuse offenders are white, were, at best, misleading. The data used to make that claim was flawed, and it had been used repeatedly to dismiss what was actually happening. It took Elon Musk posting 51 times about the scandal, posts seen 1.5 billion times in total, calling Starmer utterly despicable and complicit in the rape of Britain, to finally force a national statutory inquiry. Announced June 2025, chaired by Baroness Anne Longfield, terms of reference still being finalised as of this month, decades after the abuse began. And then we come to what happened in Southport, which broke every single assumption they'd built their narrative on. On the 29th of July 2024, 17-year-old Axel Mugawana Rudakabana arrived by taxi at the Heart Space, a community dance studio in Southport. He was carrying a kitchen knife he'd bought on Amazon 16 days earlier. Inside was a Taylor Swift-themed yoga dance and bracelet-making workshop for children aged 6 to 11. He stabbed B.B. King 122 times. She was 6. He stabbed Elsie Stancombe at least 85 times. She was 7. The pathologist found he had attempted to decapitate her. Alice da Silva Aguiar, 9 years old, died in hospital the following day. 8 other children and 2 adults were injured. In custody, he said, "It's a good thing those children are dead. I'm so glad." Because he was 17, his identity was legally suppressed. Within hours, the false name, Ali al-Shakati, went viral, a fabrication that the attacker was a Muslim asylum seeker who'd arrived by boat. Police couldn't reveal the truth. The information vacuum triggered the worst social unrest in England since the 2011 riots. Protests and violence spread across Southport, Sunderland, Belfast, Plymouth, dozens of cities. By July 2025, 1,840 arrests had been made. The Prime Minister's response? I won't shy away from calling it what it is, far-right thuggery. Before anyone knew who the attacker was, before the facts were in, citizens were thugs. That was the official position. When reporting restrictions lifted, the reality was nothing like any narrative. Rudakabana was born in Cardiff. His parents were evangelical Christian Tutsi refugees from Rwanda, who'd lived in the UK since 2002. British citizen, no connection to Islam. But what police found in his bedroom was worse than anyone had assumed. A PDF of the Al-Qaeda training manual, homemade ricin in a lunchbox under his bunk bed, potentially yielding up to 1,269 lethal doses. A machete, arrows, documents about Nazi Germany, the Rwandan genocide, and car bombs, material mocking Islam, Judaism, and Christianity. He pleaded guilty to all 16 charges in January 2025, sentenced to life, minimum 52 years, the longest sentence ever given to someone under 18 at the time of offence. And prevent, the system that referred a 4-year-old for drawing cucumbers, that flagged 345 children under 10 in a single year, had looked at Rudakabana 3 times and let him go. The Al-Qaeda manual, the ricin, the obsessive violence, none of it was caught. They assessed him and cleared him 3 separate times, and then 3 children died. So Prevent missed that repeatedly. But let's look at the broader picture they should have been worried about, and the numbers behind it. Net migration to the UK peaked at 944,000 in the year ending March 2023. That number, by the way, was revised upward repeatedly. The original published figure was 606,000. Then 745,000, then 764,000, then 872,000, then 942,000. They kept getting it wrong in the same direction. And then there's the channel. Since 2018, approximately 196,589 people have crossed the English Channel in small boats. Of those, roughly 5,000 have been returned. That's about 3%. 97% are still here. The solution the last government came up with was the Rwanda deportation scheme. Cost £715 million. Number of people actually deported to Rwanda? 4. All of them volunteers. One was paid £3,000 to go. 715 million divided by 4 is £178.75 million per person. For context, you could buy 715 houses in Rotherham for that money, or fund Prevent for about 50 years. They did neither. Starmer scrapped it on his first full day in office. Rwanda is now suing Britain at the Permanent Court of Arbitration in The Hague for over £100 million. During the entire time the scheme existed, 84,000 people crossed the channel anyway. The asylum system itself costs £4.7 billion a year. Hotel accommodation alone runs at £8.3 million per day. Asylum accommodation contracts, originally estimated at £4.5 billion over 10 years, are now projected at £15.3 billion. The contractors, Clearsprings, Mears and Serco collectively made £380 million in profit. And there are the cases, specific ones with names. Foreign nationals make up 12% of the UK prison population, 10,772 people. Albanian men are the single most overrepresented group. Roughly 1 in 36 Albanian men in the UK is in prison. That's 20 times higher than Germans or Italians. Their conviction rate between 2021 and 2023 was 30 times higher than British nationals. Langaween Abdulramizai, Afghan asylum seeker, claimed to be 14, was actually around 18, placed with a care family and sent to a secondary school with children. What British authorities didn't know, because apparently nobody checked, was that he'd already been convicted of murdering 2 people in Serbia, shot them dead with a Kalashnikov. He then stabbed 21-year-old Thomas Roberts to death in Bournemouth. Life sentence, minimum 29 years. 2 Afghan unaccompanied minors, both 17, raped a 15-year-old girl in Leamington Spa in May 2025. Combined sentences over 20 years. Hadush Gerbeslassie Kabuti, Ethiopian, arrived by small boat, sexually assaulted a 14-year-old girl near his asylum seeker hotel in Epping in July 2025. And then, and I promise this is real, he accidentally got released from prison in October instead of being transferred for deportation, given a £76 discharge grant, and let go. Nationwide manhunt. And after all of this, all of it, you might wonder what the British people actually think. Because according to the government, caring about any of this makes you a potential extremist. That's right. So, after the grooming gangs, after Southport, after the Channel crossings, the crime cases, the billions spent on a system that deported 4 volunteers and accidentally released a sex offender, after all that, what do the British people actually think? YouGov, December 2024, 70% of Britons say immigration over the last decade has been too high. 70%. That's the highest since the tracker began. 50% said much too high, only 15% said about right, and 3% too low. God, who are these 3%ers? Anyway, 43% said immigration had been mostly bad for the country. Also a record, only 18% said mostly good, down from 29% in 2019. Immigration returns to the #1 issue facing the country last October. 38% according to Ipsos, first time since 2016. On grooming gangs, 48% of Britons believe fear of being accused of racism was a major factor in why authorities failed to act. 7 in 10 believe ethnicity data should be collected for child sexual exploitation crimes. And by August 2025, 45% of the public supported admitting no new migrants at all and requiring large numbers of recent arrivals to leave. 45%, including, and this is the one that should give the Labour Party nightmares, 27% of Labour voters. So the majority opinion in Britain, the overwhelming majority, is apparently extremism. 7 in 10 people in this country would need a prevent referral. And that brings us to one man's journey through all of this, because it tells you everything. August 2024, Keir Starmer stands up after Southport and tells the country, "I won't shy away from calling it is what it is. Far-right thuggery. Before the facts are known, before anyone knows who Rudy Kobana is. Citizens protesting, some violently, yes, but many peacefully, are far-right thugs. That's the label. 1,840 arrests follow. May 2025, same man, same podium. Keir Starmer warns that the UK risks becoming an island of strangers and says high immigration has done incalculable damage. June 2025, he apologises. That phrase wasn't right, and I deeply regret using it. He apologised for saying what 70% of the country believes. He has never apologised for calling those same people far-right thugs. So this is where we are. A counter-terrorism programme that refers toddlers but clears future mass murderers. A taxpayer-funded video game that accidentally became a recruitment tool for the people it was meant to suppress. A BBC drama where democracy's most basic transparency mechanism is treated as a gateway to violence. Decades of industrial child abuse ignored because the wrong people might get offended. And a Prime Minister who called you a thug for caring, then briefly said what you were saying, then took it back. The system built to protect British citizens is structurally pointed at British citizens. The media reinforces it across your television, your children's schools, and their video games. And the public knows. 7 in 10 of them know. The question now is what changes? Because if the next Rudy Kobana is sitting in a prevent case file right now, being cleared for the 4th time, while a toddler gets flagged for mispronouncing a vegetable, that's not a policy failure. Someone's made a choice. If you think more people should see these numbers, you know what to do. And if it's the first time you've watched a video of mine, well, there's plenty more where this came from. So go ahead and subscribe, leave all of your thoughts down in the comments, and I'll catch you in the next one.